think Mzee Odinga has done the same with Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. I also want to thank ARRF for facilitating this symposium, because we are witnessing a very serious problem in our universities. There is definitely some degree of degeneration in terms of engaging serious ideas. And I was sharing this with my friend Bill Mong. We are definitely sliding back to a level where we engage in trivia instead of engaging in serious ideas and trying to find solutions to our problems. It is therefore a privilege and honor for me to be here and address this gathering. And I have to first admit that the subject of Mzee Odinga's book is more important today than never before as we grapple with the question of leadership and integrity in the new constitutional dispensation. As I read through Mzee Odinga's book, My Journey with Jaramogi, I often stopped to reflect on just what went wrong with Kenyan and indeed African leadership. One of the questions that stuck to my mind was, what if we had done things differently? Would Kenya be at the level of the Asian economic tigers that we now look at for help, yet we were the same economic level at independence? The book made me reflect on the state of our nation today. For many years, what the leadership has done is to engage in the systematic destruction of our people's dreams. Even as late as the year 2002, during what we called the GLUK revolution, retrogressive forces hijacked the dream and destroyed it. This book, to me, is really not about Odinga's journey with Jaramogi. It is not even about the life of Jaramogi alone. This book tells us how bad politics has ruined our country and how progressive thinkers like Jaramogi were silenced by backward forces backed by imperialists. I was only 28 days old when Kenya achieved independence. Many of what the author of this book discusses either happened before I was born or shortly after. There are things I have read about, yet they come to me through this book in a fresh way, since they are told by an eyewitness. And we have many people who have these eyewitness accounts, but they are never given the opportunity to tell. And so this information is always lost. And therefore, this is a great achievement, not only for Mzee Odinga, but for Kenya as a whole. In short, this is a first-hand account of what transpired, and we can comfortably trust this account. I remember vaguely in 1969, when Kenyatta passed. I come from up here, just about 15 kilometers from here. When I think Jomo Kenyatta passed from the other side and we were lined up, small boys and girls lined up on the road. And after a short while, my father simply told me, people have died in Kisumu. And many people. Of course, I was a small kid. I didn't know. But later on, as I read Mzee Odinga's book, I came to understand what exactly happened at the magnitude of really what happened. And I came to comprehend the seriousness of bad leadership, or leadership that was not pro-people at all. But even more important, this book mirrors the big problem of leadership in not only Kenya, but Africa. Across Africa, the search for development has been marked by a history of colossal failure of effective leadership. This book says it all. While Jaramogi was selfless, honest, and pursuing ideals of national unity and development, there arose a mafia that surrounded Jomo Kenyatta, greedy in its intentions and selfish to root, that led Kenya to where we are now. And this is a fact that we have to grapple with at this particular time. We are what we are because of bad politics, because of selfish leaders who hijacked the leader of the country and finally led us to where we are. The group lacked the basic understanding of comprehension of the requirements of leadership, thereby failing to provide the needed positive change that Kenya needed at that particular time. It appears to me, and indeed I think I share this with the author of this book, that the country has been busy struggling to develop strategies for social, economic, and political development without first cross-checking its leadership dilemma in a bid to facilitate change. The apparent failure of development in the country, more than any other factor, is as a result of failure of leadership, which remains central to our development crisis. Kenya's leadership problem is in fact the greatest obstacle to development. And until the enthronement of effective leadership, development will continue to be a mirage, not only to Kenya but Africa. This book, to me, examines the concept of leadership in the context of Kenya and Africa, past and present, and the recurrent hurdles to Africa's development. Jaramogi was more interested in economic emancipation, and this is very evident in the book. This is clear from the economic activities that he engaged in and which the author describes in this book. And the Vice Chancellor has just told us about what we call Russia. If what we call Russia was not here, some of us would have died in childhood. Vision 2030 that all of us are talking about is a pipe dream. If the leaders of this country do not make the people buy into this vision, and if at all they are not committed to the ideals of Vision 2030. At the moment, if you go to my village up here, Vision 2030 lives in Nairobi, not in my village up here. Ask any villager to tell you about Vision 2030. Any villager doesn't know about Vision 2030. It lives in Nairobi. And so unless leaders are committed to this vision, unless they make people buy into this vision, unless they are like Jaramogi, to be selflessly committed to this vision, this is just a pipe dream. And we can forget about it. At the year 2030, we'll be talking about Vision 2060. Maybe some of us will not be here. What this book illustrates is a serious lack of dedication on the part of our leaders to a common national cause. This book demystifies a number of things. It is not so much the wicked effects of colonialism or neo-colonialism that has consigned us to poverty. This is one thing that is very clear from this book. Of course, we have always talked about colonialism and neo-colonialism, and we always want to blame the colonialists for putting us where we are. But when you assess, when you look at what Mzee Odinga talks about in this book, it is after all our leadership crisis that has created this type of situation that we find ourselves in. The inherited infrastructure, roads, bridges, schools, universities, hospitals, telephones, and even the civil service machinery are now in shambles. Common sense dictates that we trace our steps to know where we went wrong, and this book gives us this opportunity to reflect on where we went wrong. At best, in the year 2002, Professor Nyang and the rest of the people who are working in the Ministry of Planning would only come up with what we call recovery program, recovery strategy. We were not making any progress. We were recovering what we had lost.
So there was no progress. We were simply recovering what we had lost. Look at the road from here to my village up here, 20 kilometers from here. It's in shambles. We are simply recovering. In 1969, when I was standing there when Kenyatta was passing, it was a very good road. Now it's full of potholes. In other words, this book provides an opportunity for us to reflect on what went wrong and see if we can change course. We should no longer blame external forces for our problems, because our problems actually emanate from our own society and from our own leaders. We have to see the problem of leadership and fix it. Let me ask this question. Assuming Kenyatta was not manipulated by the mafia and the imperialists to sideline progressive ideas, what if the assassinations we witnessed did not take place? What if land distribution had been done the way Jaramogi and Kagia wanted it done? Would we be where we are at the moment? It amazes me to imagine that somebody can amass a mass of land the size of what we used to call Nyanza province for only one individual. What type of greed can you say? Well, can you call that? It's just greed that we cannot even explain. What about if things had been done the way Kagia and Jaramogi had wanted things done? We wouldn't be having these problems that we have been having. It is therefore a must to make an erring examination of all constitutive factors, both external and internal, in order to understand our predicament. A big obstacle to economic growth in Africa is the tendency to put all blame, failures and shortcomings to outsiders. Look at our resources, for example. Africa is the world's richest continent. It has 50% of world's gold. Most of the world's diamond and chromium, it's here. 90% of cobalt is here. 40% of world's potential hydraulic power is here. Yet, we are always consigned to darkness in the evening. 65% of manganese, millions of acres of unutilized land, as well as other natural resources are here. But we are only trailing the Asian tigers that were close to us at the time of independence, or rather we were together at the time of independence. The book, to me, therefore, reveals that Kenyatta, both Jomo Kenyatta and President Moi, presided over governments that resorted to unstrained squander mania, the elevation of some of the position of, the elevation of some to the position of owners, and the reduction of the greater majority into a class of slaves. More painful was the fact that this was happening in a country jointly owned by all of us. All of us are shareholders to the title deed that we call Kenya. But some people would like to actually keep it to themselves. Jaramogi was of course against this falling of our communal air by the corruption of bloated politicians. This false smell of corruption has become the perfume of all our leaders. And that's why basically we are going through these man-made disasters like the one we went through in the year 2007-2008. This book to me therefore reveals the way the West props up bad governments, and especially when I was reading Mzee Odinga's book, I noticed how the Kenyatta government was being manipulated by forces from outside this country to actually lead us to where we are at this particular time. This book demonstrates how African leaders are harnessed and developed into superhumans by the West and even by ourselves to be so powerful over the people. They become some kind of gods. That is why Jomo Kenyatta would come to Kenya and tell Jaramogi,